The Pocketcat is a mysterious little figure found in both Fear and Hunger games. We don't have much concrete information about this character, but we do know enough to narrow things down and tell you what this little creature is all about. First of all, I want to talk about something I haven't really seen anyone talk about, and that is what inspired him. I've seen many people call Pocketcat an iteration of our world's boogeyman, and I believe that to be partially true. But where I grew up, we were told stories about a character that matches up just a little too much with Fear and Hunger's Pocketcat. I'll delve into some really disturbing things here, so do be warned. In Norway, there was this one special criminal called the Pocket Man. And as you see right off the bat, they just changed the man to be a cat in Fear and Hunger. Like, come on. Furthermore, this guy was an unidentified child molester who tried to trick children into touching his genitals by, for example, telling the children to search for his keys in his pockets. The pockets had holes in them, which led to the children touching something that would leave them horrifically traumatized. The police had registered about 160 cases from 1976 to 2006 by the Pocket Man. By the way, check out this monster here. His name is Erik Andersson. He was sentenced to jail in 2010, and as of 2014, he's been a free man. That's right, this monster is out in society, but I would guess, and mostly hope, that he's being watched like a hawk by the government. This is a really sad story, but the nightmare is luckily over. For now. I've seen people saying Pocketcat is an exaggerated version of the boogeyman. But after telling you about this, I would hope that you can see that the Pocketcat in Fear and Hunger is barely an exaggerated figure from our own world. Now let's have a look at Pocketcat and what this story really is about. First off, we gotta start with what he is and why he is here. Just from his looks, we can tell that he isn't just a normal guy. He is something else. He is a servant of the trickster moon god Rare. Rare is an old god and hates all humans and has been jealous ever since we started with Ascensions, where humans became new gods, and even old gods in some cases. Rare wants to stop this and has ordered Pocketcat to stop any children with the potential of becoming a god. This might explain why Pocketcat kidnapped all the children in the kingdom of Rondon. At some point in Fear and Hunger, you're able to visit the past of Rondon to experience the playable character's backstory. There you'll see posters of missing children, and if you visit one of the cellars in the city, you'll see a child trying to escape something in the darkness. But of course, it's too late for him. Pocketcat has already laid his paws on him. Maybe there were a lot of children with the potential of becoming a god at this place. Maybe the ascension of an old god was destined, and therefore there were a lot of children with the potential of becoming a god. That's just speculation though. All we know for certain is that Pocketcat has been doing a lot of work with kidnapping children lately. One question about Pocketcat, which I couldn't find an answer to, is this. What came first? The story of Pocketcat or the creation of the Pocketcat? Some people might say that it's obvious that Rare created the Pocketcat first, and the people created stories about him later on. But the stories you find in the dungeon of Fear and Hunger are just fairy tales. Couldn't it potentially be a case where the god Rare saw an opportunity to spawn a creation of fairy tale to much more easily kidnap children? Why would anybody believe someone who sees a child being kidnapped by Pocketcat? Pocketcat is just a fairy tale after all. In Fear and Hunger 1, the player first meets Pocketcat in the caverns. Pocketcat is well spoken and charismatic, which is a huge contrast to almost everyone else you'll meet in the dungeon. He starts off talking a little philosophically, and in my opinion, almost seems like a trustworthy character in the beginning. That is before he ultimately tells you his actual intentions. He wants children. If you're actually willing to give him a child, either the girl or a demon kid, he'll offer you a valuable item. And after you've given him a child, he'll start rubbing his pockets. The implications are horrifying. Furthermore, if you deny him once, and later on in Mahabharata deny him again, he'll get so angry. It seems he's restricted in some way, as he cannot take the girl without the consent of the player. He'll ask his master what to do, but luckily for you, there's nothing he can do to get the girl. In Fear and Hunger 2, the Pocketcat reappears, with a slightly different look. This time, he doesn't ask for children, but asks for contestants' heads instead. If you give him contestants' heads, he will reward you items. His main objective, it seems, is still to kidnap and hurt children, as this is the very first thing we see happen when we meet Pocketcat in Fear and Hunger 2. One interesting bit of information we learn in Fear and Hunger 2, we are believed to think that Pocketcat is still a servant of Rare, but as Perkele reveals in one of the endings, it is the Sulphur God who's been the one in control of the festival the whole time. Perkele was believed to be a servant of Rare, but was actually a servant to the Sulphur God. This might also mean the Pocketcat serves the Sulphur God, and not Rare, since both Perkele and Pocketcat was believed to be servants of Rare. The only thing the Sulphur God wants to do is inflict pain and suffering upon people, which seems quite fitting for Pocketcat. You might also ask yourself why Pocketcat isn't in both Fear and Hunger games, as the games are about 400 years apart. Is this Pocketcat the same as the one in Fear and Hunger 1? Not likely. The Pocketcat seems to be very interested in one of the contestants, and that is of course Daan. In Fear and Hunger 2, people can moonscorch, which brings out the deepest insecurities and manifests them as physical beings. Almost every contestant can moonscorch, but one of them are not like the others. If you play as Daan and end up being moonscorched, you'll get a little cutscene with Pocketcat. It looks as though Pocketcat takes control over Daan, and instead of becoming one of the other types of moonscorched creatures, Daan actually ends up becoming the new Pocketcat. It seems that becoming Pocketcat is something that is destined to happen to some people, and that's how this creature has survived so long. It is something that is inherited, and something that is going to continue for however long humans are around. It is also interesting to mention that Daan had a troubled upbringing as a child, as his parents were followers of the old god Sylvian, and participated in rituals with the bunny masks. This is just a sex cult, basically. It isn't mentioned anywhere that Daan was abused physically, luckily, but he was neglected due to his parents prioritizing the cult of Sylvian instead of him. It is interesting that this character that was unfortunately introduced to such a sexual lifestyle so early on in his life ended up as the Pocketcat. In Daan's transformation, it is hinted that his past with the followers of Sylvian might have been the cause for him to end up as the Pocketcat. The Pocketcat goes as far as to call Daan a dirty, degenerate furry, which I wouldn't even tell my worst enemy. It is a sad story for Daan, and even sadder if he actually does end up becoming the new Pocketcat. Pocketcat preys upon the vulnerable. He builds trust to lure people in before showing who he really is. He is a sad reflection of how people can act in real life. As mentioned earlier, the Pocket Man is a real person, and he might potentially be just as bad as the Pocketcat we see in the Fear and Hunger games. It's really sickening that people like that exists, but I love the fact that Fear and Hunger dares to portray something like that in its games. Fear and Hunger takes things to the extreme, but in reality, it's barely an exaggerated reflection of the world we live in today. I hope you find this video interesting, and leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. And let us all hope that we never end up meeting the Pocketcat.